morning, everybody. Good morning. You know what I love? 8 a.m. snowstorms on Sunday mornings. I mean, just absolutely my favorite, because everybody just gets up, sees that, and says, I want to get up and go to church this morning. Actually, I was kind of worried that nobody was going to be here. And even after we started, I was kind of worried that only 3 people were going to be here. But thank you all for being here, even in the midst of snowy weather. I want to let you guys know about a brand new series that we are starting next Sunday called Stop Going to Church. I bet you that's probably not what you expected me to say. But if you want to know more about what I mean and why this is such a big deal, please show up next Sunday as we begin this. And every single Sunday in January, the first one in February even, this is going to be a big deal for us. So make sure that you plan on being here and that you plan on inviting as many people as you know, plus 20 strangers, every single Sunday in January. Got it? All right, good. So we're going to kick that off next week. So 2018 is basically over. Raise your hand if you accomplished everything that you hoped to accomplish in 2018. 2 of you, fantastic. Actually, 1 of you. The other one was just putting an arm around the spouse. Got it. Great time to put your arm up. Fantastic. Yeah, most of us probably did not accomplish everything that we wanted to in 2018, but we probably have high hopes for 2019 because that's just the way that we work. And this is the time of year that we typically set off to do these things called resolutions, where we say, you know what? Even though 2018 didn't work out exactly the way that I thought it was going to, I'm going to make sure that 2019 is different. And so we create these things called resolutions. Now, I have never really been big on resolutions, but I do have one thing. There's one thing, and I try to do this every single year because here's the deal. There was this thing in the Old Testament, and then there's a story in the New Testament that we're going to read in a few minutes. But there was this thing in the Old Testament where there was this leader named Nehemiah. And all of his people, Israel, they had been exiled except for just a few people that were left. And he had been exiled for his entire life. But he had heard these stories about how the city of Jerusalem, his town of his ancestors, had been destroyed by these neighboring warlords and the Assyrians. And he decided that he wanted to go back to Jerusalem and try to do something to fix it. And the king of Assyria eventually lets him go. And he gets back there and he realizes there are so many things that have to happen. There are so many things that we need to do. But there is, guess how many? I love the energy in the room. There is one thing that we have to do. And out of all the things that he could have picked as his resolution to get going in that city of Jerusalem, he said there's one thing that absolutely has to happen. We have to rebuild this wall of Jerusalem. And so every single year, at the beginning of the year, I say, what's the one thing, not a resolution, but the one thing that can have an effect far beyond just that one thing? What's the one thing that I could do that would change my life in this year? And I've come up with one thing for me. And if you don't have your one thing yet, I want to challenge you to let this be your one thing too. Because I think this one thing is one of the most important things that you will ever be able to do in your life. That's a pretty big statement, right? You guys want to know what that one thing is? This one thing is going to affect every part of your life. It will affect your relationship with God in a huge way. You guys want to hear that one thing? It will affect your job in the way that you do your work. Your boss will probably be even happier. If you are the boss, your employees will be even happier. You guys ready for it? It will affect the quality of your relationships, your friendships, your marriage, your relationship with your kids. It will affect everything. You ready? You sure? I plan to. And my goal in 2019 is to become less distracted. You probably weren't expecting that. You were probably expecting someone much better than that. But here's the deal, and this is why this is so important, and I'm going to explain it in better detail. But this is why this is so important, because we live definitely in the midst of a culture and society that is more distracted than any culture and society has ever been. I think it's safe to say that. Absolutely. We have so many more things. We have people constantly pulling at us like never before. Right? You have people in your life. I saw a bumper sticker one time that said, Jesus loves you and everyone has a plan for your life. If you stop and think about that, it's kind of true. It's kind of like everybody, and the older I get, it's like the more and more people want to be able to tell me what to do with my life, right? Do you wish that life, like, you just came with a do not disturb sign that you could turn on and people had to leave you alone? Wouldn't that be awesome? I would probably turn it on way too often around my children. But anyway, it would be amazing to have that. But so people are constantly pulling at us. But you know what else is constantly pulling at us like never before? Technology. These things right here. How many of you have one of these? Yeah. Here's the thing with this. This right here may be the single greatest distraction maker that the world has ever seen. Matter of fact, there's this really cool picture that's been going around for the last couple of years on the internet. It's all these people, they're seeing this major event happening. Check out this picture. You get all these people checking this out. Check out the one lady right in the middle of the front there. The only one without her cell phone up.
She's
just enjoying the moment. Just taking it in. Just being present in the moment. Everybody else is like, no. Got to get this on Facebook. Got to get this on Twitter. Got to get this on Instagram. Got to get it done. But she is the only one that's actually just enjoying the moment. There was a book written just a few years ago called 12 Ways Your Cell Phone is Ruining Your Life. Anybody read that? The 12 Ways Your Cell Phone is Ruining Your Life. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list. It's so cool. I read different parts of it. But basically, the guy says this. He's got this premise. Do you know how many times the average American checks their cell phone a year while they're awake? You ready for this number? 81,500 times while we're awake. And almost 40% of Americans actually check their phone in the middle of the night. It's absolutely insane. I was hoping that you'd be a little more blown away by that number. I think some of you are like, yeah, I could probably do better than that. Even if you don't think that you're in that midst, even if you're half of that, that's still 41,000 times that you are going to check your phone this year. That's once every 4.2 minutes. Which means that over the next 15, 20 minutes of this sermon, before we're done here, you're going to check your phone 4 or 5 times. I see one person doing it right now. So listen, that's exactly the way that we do this. We check our phones when we get bored. We check our phones when there's nothing else to do. We check our phones when we feel any kind of lull. And it automatically creates this distraction within us. And so, listen, this thing, it's got so many good things about it, but yet it creates so much of this distraction. And there are other things that create distraction. It creates distraction from our relationships, because there's one counselor that says this. He says that in his practice, that the thing that causes more family breakup, more divorce than anything else isn't money arguments, it isn't affairs, it's distraction. It's the cell phone. It's the technology constantly distracting. Because he says you need to be able to give someone focused attention and focused time. And these things that are pulling us away take us away from that. Consistently take us away from that. And we need to be able to learn to get back to this. The word distraction. Do you guys realize that there was a French form of torture where they used to do this? You probably have heard of this. Where they would tie all 4 of your limbs to a different horse. You guys have heard of this?
Ew.
And they would send the 4 horses the separate ways. No. This is horrible. You know what they called that? You know what they called that? Quartering, or they called it distraction. Not making this up, because what that meant is that you were being pulled apart in different directions. And essentially, that's exactly what's happening to us. It's a little less painful right off the bat. But we're being pulled apart. It's kind of like death by distraction. We're being pulled apart, and it's ripping apart families. It's ripping apart relationships. You're not having the intimacy in your relationship with God, the intimacy in your relationship with people. Like there are times that I sit down and I use my phone in order to be able to, if I don't have a Bible with me, I turn to my Bible app on my phone. But do you realize how many notifications this thing will give you? Even when you're in your Bible app, sometimes it'll give you Facebook notifications. It'll give you email notifications. You can turn all these things off, but I didn't know that for a long time. And it'll give you news information. It'll give you news updates. And so I sit down to start reading the Bible, and before I realize it, I'm reading the 5 most bizarre things that Justin Bieber plans to do on his honeymoon. And I'm like, I don't even care. Why am I even looking at this? And it's because we are constantly distracted by the things around us. And so, here's my goal, my plan. Oh, by the way, do you guys realize that our generation, we've come up with this term that we are really proud of. You guys know what this term is? It's called multitasking. It's one of the greatest lies. It's one of the greatest things that I think the enemy, Satan, has used against us. Do you guys know where this term first came about? Do you guys know when it was invented? 1965. So it's not even that old. 1965, this term was invented. And do you know who invented it? You guys need to get out there and read more. IBM. IBM, when they were creating computers, they used that term multitasking to describe what a computer is supposed to do. A computer is supposed to be able to do multiple functions all at the same time and create this incredible ability to be able to work. We are not wired like a computer. You are not wired like a computer. But yet, for some reason, we get so proud of the way that we multitask. But in reality, what we're saying is I'm not good at staying focused at one thing, so I'm going to do about 4 things really, really lousy. And that's the way that we approach this. So listen, my goal in 2019 is to be able to get past the distraction, is to be able to focus in, have intimacy in my relationships with God, my relationships with my spouse, my relationship with my kids, close friends, and also make sure that I only allow the right kind of people to be able to distract and interrupt me. And so my goal in 2019 is to become less distracted. So if you don't have a goal, I would encourage you to do this as well. Let me explain to you a little bit more about why this is important. If you have your Bible, we're going to be in Luke chapter 10. And this is the only passage in the entire Bible where the word distracted actually shows up. Nowhere else does it show up the way that it shows up here. Luke chapter 10, Jesus has been walking around with his disciples, and they've come to this house where there are these 2 women. One of them is named Martha. It's her house. The other one is her sister Mary. Now, Martha is going to spend all of her time cooking and cleaning and doing the dishes and getting everything in order. But her sister Mary is going to spend her time sitting at the feet of Jesus, just listening and worshiping and hanging on every word that he said. Check this out. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was what? Distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. In other words, Jesus, what you're allowing to go on here is wrong. And so I need you, she's kind of rebuking Jesus a little bit here. I need you to tell my sister that what she's doing is wrong. That sitting here listening to you is not the way to go. That she needs to be up with me. We've got 12 guys here, 13 guys here that are ready to eat and drink stuff, and we need to make sure that this gets done. Tell her to get up and help me. And he says to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Or indeed, only how many?
One.
Only one thing is necessary. Only one thing is essential. And Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Wow. So listen, Mary, Martha, you've got so many things going on in your mind. You've got so many things pulling at you. But how many things are essential?
One.
Just one. And she has chosen the right thing. Now, here are 5 things real quick that I want to point out from this passage, and then I want to give you the 3 things that I'm going to challenge myself to do in 2019. Everybody ready? Number 1 is this. Distraction is not the same as interruption. And we need to make sure this is very, very clear. Because Jesus, throughout his entire life, seemed very indistractable. But he seemed very imminently interruptible a lot of the time. Not distractible, but very interruptible. You guys get the difference? So, like, for example, there was this one time in Matthew chapter 12 where he was out doing his miracle stuff, and his family showed up. And listen, Jesus lived as a carpenter with his family pretty much through his whole adult life, right up until he started his ministry. And so they were close. They knew him. And then all of a sudden, he goes out and he starts preaching these crazy things. And they knew that he was special. They knew that he was different. But he starts talking about these crazy things. And none of them just like followed him around like his disciples did. And they started realizing that the crazier things that he said, the more people got angry. And so his parents, his brother, they would go to church. They would go to the temple, and the rabbis would be like, yeah, these are the parents of Jesus, that crazy lunatic out there saying all these crazy things. And then they started getting concerned that maybe Jesus was even going to be killed for what he was saying. And so they went to Jesus, and they said, listen, son, we need you to come home with us because you've gone a little crazy out here. And Jesus would not even let his family distract him from his goal. He said, you want to know who my family is? And he pointed to everybody else and he said, they're my family. This is my goal. This is what I'm supposed to do. He wouldn't even let his family distract him. There was this other time, this is one of my favorite stories in the New Testament. There was this one time where he and his disciples, they had been walking, and they were going through this region called Samaria, which is where Jews weren't even supposed to go. And they were Jews, but they were walking through Samaria, and finally they were so hungry. This lets you know how hungry they were. They were so hungry that they said, okay, there's a Samaritan town. We've got to go in there. That's like the equivalent of having to go to McDonald's, right? Nothing around, but we're so hungry, we've got to get in there and make this happen. And so the disciples, they're so hungry, they go. But Jesus says, I'm going to wait out here by the well. And they said, but Jesus, we've been walking around for days and we haven't had any food. Aren't you going to come with us? And he said, I'm just going to hang here by the well and you guys go get something to eat. They go into town, and he sits down by the well, and eventually this Samaritan woman comes, who was never supposed to have anything to do with Jesus. And she comes and she sits down, and they have this discourse that becomes one of the most famous discourses in the entire Bible. And he teaches us how we're supposed to treat people who are different than us, who act different, who look different, of different nationalities than us. And in this moment, it made me realize Jesus wouldn't even let his hunger distract him. I let my hunger distract me all the time, and you probably do too. He wouldn't let his hunger distract him from his mission. But at the same time, so he was very undisruptible. He would not be disrupted by distraction. But at the same time, he was very eminently interruptible, because there was this one time that he was on his way to heal someone. And he gets stopped along the way by this lady who's got this sickness, and she just starts tugging on his shirt, and he stops right in the midst of this when there's somebody that needs healing. He stops right there, and he has this great conversation with everybody about what's going on. And so he seems very interruptible. So the two things are very different. Matter of fact, most of life's moments, if you're honest, most of life's moments happen when we find ourselves able to be interruptible. Like the best moments, like the best parenting moments I have is when I'm kind of interrupted, right? It's not when I've got it planned. It's just when things naturally happen. The best moments that you have, matter of fact, when I was just becoming a follower of Jesus, is because I was interrupted. So there are going to be times in your life when you're interrupted. So the difference between being distracted and interrupted. Distracted is this. It's when I'm trying to have a conversation with my spouse, and I've got my cell phone open, checking my email, and I'm thinking about what I have to do the next day. That's distracted. That's not being able to give a singular focus. That's being pulled in many directions. Interruption, on the other hand, is this. This is a true story that happened just a couple weeks ago. My 6-year-old son, I'm sitting there typing on the computer. My 6-year-old son walks up to me and says, "Hey, Dad, why do you love Mommy so much?" I thought, this is a really cool, interruptible moment. So I stop, and I begin to have a conversation. You guys want to know what I told him? Guess not. All right. So, disruption, or distraction, is very different than interruption. If you want to know, you'll have to ask me a different time. Number 2, distraction is often the good keeping you from the essential. Distraction is often the good keeping you from the essential. Because listen, Martha wasn't doing anything bad. You know what she was doing? She was cooking and cleaning. How many of you have to cook and clean every week? Yeah, a few husbands are like, I'm supposed to, but I don't. Yeah. Distraction is the good keeping you from the essential, because Martha was doing good things, but she was so scattered. She was doing many things and not doing any of them really well. Ecclesiastes 9:10, this is a really cool verse in the Old Testament. It says this, it says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all. You know what that means? It means whatever you're doing, be all present in that. So listen, when you're at work, Do you know what you're supposed to do at work? Is it supposed to be scattered and do a bunch of different good things? Or are you supposed to be focused in on the one thing? When you're at work, be at work and be focused in. You know what they say, that when you try multitasking at work and you're doing your job and then you check your email every 5 minutes? You know how long it says that it takes the average person to get back into focus when they're doing their job? 51 seconds. Not sure how they come up with that average, but 51 seconds. When you get distracted from what you're doing, and then you have to go back and restart it, it takes you at least 51 seconds to get back into what you were doing. So from a productivity standpoint, it's not even worth it. So when you're at work, be at work. When you're at church and you're here to worship, be here. Be focused on your opportunity to grow, to listen to the word, to be able to worship, to be able to pray. Focus in on it. When you're out with friends, be out with friends. Matter of fact, one thing you should do is take your cell phone and leave it in your car. Okay, maybe you shouldn't leave it in your car, but put it on the table where you can't, put it all in the middle where you can't, just do something to get yourself away from the distraction. Be present. When you are at rest, when you're at rest, I told you almost 40% of the people check their phone in the middle of the night. When you're at rest, be 100% at rest. Don't be distracted and pulled in many different directions. All right, real quick. 3 more things, and we'll go through these real quick, and then I'll give you a quick challenge at the end. Number 3, distraction enslaves an insecure heart. Distraction enslaves an insecure heart. Let me just say it like this. Martha was looking for her confidence. She was looking for her sense of significance in something besides Jesus. Because she was like, I've got to be the one that serves. I've got to be the one that does everything. If I don't do it, nothing's going to get done. But listen, what's so amazing about that is that Jesus had just fed thousands of people with just a couple pieces of bread and a couple pieces of fish. And now she's worried about a sink full of dishes that can't get done because if she doesn't do it, nobody's going to be able to do it. I think that Martha robbed us of something. You see, I think, and every husband, every man in the world would have loved this, because I think that if she hadn't had to do everything, I think we could have seen a miracle of the dirty dishes happen. And I think that every time, from that point forward, whenever a wife looked at a husband and said, can you help me do the dishes? The husband would be able to say, no, time out. Let's just see if Jesus is going to do this again. Let's just see if Jesus can pull off the miracle of the dirty dishes one more time. But Martha robbed us of that. And we don't get that opportunity anymore because she was insecure, and distraction enslaves an insecure heart. And you end up saying things like, I have to work harder. I have to do more. I have to accomplish this. I have to work double. I have to multitask. And then what happens is distraction creeps into your life. Number 4, real quick. Distraction entices an empty heart. Distraction entices an empty heart. If you are not filled and your relationship with Jesus is not enough to bring you peace and joy, you will find yourself distracted. You will find yourself reaching for your phone, reaching for someone, reaching for something to distract you. Anytime you get bored, anytime there's a lull, the first thing in the morning you are going to reach for it because you have to be able to see what other people are doing. We have this fear of missing out. You know, they actually came up with a name for, it's a phobia of being afraid of being without your phone. You know what it's called? Nomophobia. It's fear of being away from your phone. Because we have fear of missing out, fear of being away from your phone, and people suffer from this. But listen, if you are not satisfied in your relationship with Jesus, you are going to constantly be trying to fill your time in your life with something else to bring you peace. And distraction entices an empty heart. Number 5, distraction also rules an unprioritized heart. Distraction rules an unprioritized heart. And what that means is, if you don't know what your priorities are, and you haven't narrowed them down to 3, 4, 5 things in your life, you are going to be distracted to the point where you don't let those things take priority in your life. And so, I've sat down many times. Matter of fact, I have to sit down every couple of weeks and ask myself, what are my priorities? And I've come to this. I have 4 things in my life that have to happen. Number 1, my relationship with God is my ultimate priority. How much time am I praying, spending in His Word, spending worshiping, those kind of things. Number 2, my relationship with my spouse is at the top of my list. Number 3, my relationship with my children. And number 4, my relationship as the pastor of this church. And that's really it. And if I don't set my priorities and have them as my priorities, I will be distracted from all four of those things and find myself doing things that ultimately will not matter. John Maxwell, who's an author, he says that you cannot overestimate the importance of practically everything. Think about it. You can't overestimate the importance of practically everything. But yet, if we are not careful, what we're going to do is if we have an empty heart, an unprioritized heart, we're going to let distraction rule us. And so my 2019, I've decided I'm going to be different. So here's what I'm going to do. Three things that I'm just going to challenge myself with, and I challenge you to as well. Number one is this. I'm going to take at least the what?
First 15.
The what?
First 15.
Let's just say that one word that's capitalized and see if we can't all do it together. Wake up just a little bit. Take at least the
First.
There we go. 15 minutes of the day to be with Jesus. That could be prayer. That could be sitting down with worship music. That could be in His Word. But I'm going to not reach for my phone. I'm going to spend the first 15 minutes every day to be with Jesus. Because I don't want to be distracted from that the rest of the day. Number two. This is going to be a tough one. You keep your phone up and you check it only at certain times. And I'm going to recommend for myself twice a day.
What?
Yeah. Once late morning, once in the evening, and that's it. So if you don't get a text back from me, that's why. It's also a good excuse not to text people anyway. And the last thing is this. I'm going to review my priorities often. Review my priorities often to make sure that I am not letting things distract me from what is most important. Because you cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. So if you don't have something that you're going to do this year, something that you're focused in on, I would encourage you to be less distracted. It will change your relationship with God. It will change your relationship with other people. And it will bring you to a greater sense of intimacy with God and the people around you. It will bring you a greater sense of efficiency in the things that you do in your life. So if you have nothing else that you plan on doing this year, nothing that you want to change, I would encourage you to change this. Everybody got it? Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your word. And Lord, this is so important, yet it's something that we don't often think about. We are so distracted. And we're so easily distractible. God, we look at the things around us and we think, I have plenty of time to do what's most important, but the reality is that the most important things are what we should be focusing on right now. God, help us to put our priorities in order. God, help us to be less distracted by the things that don't matter. God, help us to be filled in our relationship with you so that our heart isn't unprioritized, so that our heart isn't empty, so that our heart isn't unfulfilled. God, as the distractions come up throughout our days and weeks in the coming year, God, let us be able to turn our heart's attention to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Have a great week. We'll see you guys back next Sunday for the start of our brand new series, Stop Going to Church, and we'll see you in 2019. Have a great Sunday, everybody.